You found a quiet corner of your mind, a shelf where all the broken things were piled. The stories told in whispers and in scars brought you here beneath these waiting stars. Not for a fix or just to soothe the ache, but for the chance that something new could break. So let the silence hold you like a seam where every thread of hope begins to gleam. This is the in-between. Welcome to the butterfly room, where healing's not an end, it is a tune. You learn to hum and gentle afternoons. Transformation blooms from a cocoon of questions you'll be led to see the colors waiting in the thread. Welcome to the butterfly room. We'll hold the lens up to the hidden part, the dormant art that's beating in your heart. We'll map the change, the subtle stay tuned, the lessons that the aftermath can learn. Not to erase the lines that make your map, but to unfold the wings and cross the gap and watch the old shell fragile drift away, making space for the new light of day. In this alchemical space, welcome to the butterfly room, where healing's not an end, it is a tune. You learn to hum and gentler afternoons. Transformation blooms from a cocoon of questions you'll be led to see the colors waiting in the thread.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to visit us today. We are on our 5th episode of the Butterfly Room. But as you know, customarily, I have to bring in my friends.
Hello, friend. How are you?
I am fine on this beautiful day. And when I tell you life can bring us through changes, but you know what? I go day by day, week by week, and guess what? We are in the middle of January. So welcome, Madam Butterfly. And as you know, today, we're going to get to meet you. But before you introduce us to who you are, we need to bring Mark in, our producer from the Most. And I tell you, every time he's always doing something. Come on in, Mark, and join us this evening. I guess until we wait for Mark to come on in, Madam Butterfly, how are you doing? I know you're on location.
I am doing fine and excellent. It is January, so I woke up this morning where we're staying with family. I walked outside. It's absolutely beautiful, and it looked a little foggy. I took another look. It was snowing. So
But you're in the Midwest, right?
I'm in Chicago.
Yes. And you know, we have folks in Chicago. Oh, wow, my son's family. And when I tell you, we went to go see his big mama, she said, well, you need to put some Vaseline on that baby's face. I said, why? Then we went outside, and because he was real fair skinned, his face looked like a chair. So from there, I know you do need to be Vaseline. You have your Vaseline.
Oh, I've got my shea butter
Well, see,
and my argan oil. But my husband just went for a walk, so I'm waiting to see what he's going to look like when he comes back.
okay, Mr. Q. I just know that weather over there in the Windy City, and it's crazy because it's so cold. But when you go there in the summertime, and we went, and that's where the aquarium and the zoo is. And I said, wow, how is it so hot? And then I didn't understand because you have Lake Michigan.
Yes.
And from there, I said, this looks like the beach, but they had the best of both worlds, the Magnificent Mile. And I just remember going once a year. We would drive and, you know, just seeing the difference of how the Midwest, the climate shift. It goes from extreme cold to extreme hot.
Yes, it does. And where we're located, you can walk right out. We're on you can see the lake, and he's taking a little walk, and he asked our host, how do I get to the beach? It's about a 10-minute walk to the beach. They were telling us the beach last night with sand and everything, and it's like we were out last night and saw the Ferris wheel.
Yes.
So I've been to Chicago, but I was here for a conference. You don't get to see the good stuff when you're
Do
there
they still have the
doing work.
bubble over there? You can go in there, and I think there was
I
like a
have no
flower
idea.
garden.
After we, tomorrow's another day, so we'll get to see some more during the day. But
Yes.
it's a short trip, but it's a break that you need every now and then. So it'll be
Yes.
fun.
Well,
Anyway,
thank you. I don't know what Mark's doing because he's probably on double duty as always, but I know you're on location, and I know today I wanted to introduce. So the segment of this show is to do is introduce what Madam Butterfly, her purpose is, and we're gonna let you, give us what your purpose is, and thank you for, your presence today on location.
well, that's a good intro because I don't consider myself anyone special. I'm just me. My purpose every day, I believe, is being unfolded to me. Um, I chose the nomenclature, the nom de plume, Madame Butterfly, because 2011 I was introduced to rearing monarch butterflies with the sole purpose of using them as a teaching aid in my classroom. I am a certified elementary school teacher, certified in early childhood specifically, but I do have a degree in biology, psychology, and education. Um, but even before that, that was like a second career. I worked in the field of fashion, um, retail, merchandising, educated in New York for that, and ran all over the city. And worked in some companies that no longer exist. I kind of yearn for that high fashion. But it all comes to play because what it does, it makes you or allows you to interface with so many different people and thus hones your interaction or your behavior. Um, which brings us to what you started off saying, that everybody needs a champion. And initially I was thinking, well, we as women of color, we have to be strong on all sides, have to know all the rules and how to play the game. But I was reassured last evening with conversations with our host that it's us as people, women, everyone, even myself, we need someone, someone to nurture us. And it doesn't always have to be as a young child, although if you get it then, it's awesome. Sometimes you forget it. I find now in my life, I'm pulling out things that my mother taught me. And I don't have any children, but I got you now.
Yes.
Um, it just makes me feel good, but it reassures me of that I do have a purpose because I can pass on some things that I've learned, maybe the hard way, maybe things that I remember my mom teaching me, to share with someone else who may not have had that kind of nurturing. I I say that I'm just me and nobody special because I have, within the past 20 years, I've known my family history, but I've embraced the fact that I am a granddaughter of a North Carolina sharecropper who grew tobacco and cotton and supported his family with the livestock on their farm, and was a deacon in his church, and was a master mason in the lodge there, and in the wintertime would go in the forest and cut down trees for firewood for some of the neighboring widows and children who did not have. That was a legacy of service and helping other people that knowingly or unknowingly it was passed on to me. When I was a child, I need to share this because it stayed in my mind. And if you ever get an email from me, It's on my email. It's my signature. And my mother taught it to me. She honed it in me. A poem that he taught her, and it says, plan out more than you can do and do it. Bite off more than you can chew and chew it. For when a labor is once begun, never leave it till it's done. Be the project, big or small. Do it well or not at all. And sometimes you can't always finish it the way you want to finish it. But if you attack it with that kind of energy, you usually finish it. Unfortunately, sometimes I attack it with that energy and I take on too much. I had to learn how to say no. But what it gave me as a child, or a young woman coming up, is that if you commit to something, then truly commit to it. Don't get distracted. Sometimes people learn what you can do, what your skills are, and they will use them up.
Mm-hmm.
And or the jealousy and envy bug comes out and they will try to lack of a better word, just use it, destroy them.
And
And that comes doesn't come outright, but it can be, you can get distracted. You can get into a situation where you are angry. And so many times, so many of us don't have the tools to combat that in a different way from being combative. Um, uh, I truly believe that no answer is an answer. I always used to be called, oh, she's the quiet one. Even within my family, I was picked on because they knew if they picked on me, I wasn't going to fight back. But I did fight back, just in a different way. Um, my best friend used to say, "Watch out for her. Still waters run deep," and I never knew what that meant until what was it? Somebody backed me into a corner, and I just flipped on them, and they said, "Ooh, don't mess with her because she'll take a lot, but when she gives it back to you, she goes back through history." Yeah, and I've learned that about myself. Um, but I'm realizing that a lot of people just don't know. I I as a teacher, I got into a situation with a parent and she read me up one side and down the other. And it broke my heart because that wasn't what I intended. And she had the opportunity or the ability to really ruin my career. Had another parent just hand me a book. She said, read the book and pray in the book. I've been um, a Christian um, since I was 12 years old. Just living it, not because that's what I was taught to do and not flaunting it or whatever. And in the church deep, lived next door to the church. Um, and so I read the book. The book is called The Four Agreements,
oh
and
yes.
it's based on an ancient wisdom, and it's about the tools, the four agreements that you put into your life for your own happiness, well being, and love. And it's really, really simple. The first one is um, be impeccable with your words. That means, consider what comes out of your mouth. And we learn in church, if you speak it, you can speak things into action. And we don't realize that.
Manifestation. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And the second one is like, don't take anything personally. We take too many things personally that if we just step back and it's like, it's about the thing and not about me. Unless somebody comes at you and says, this is about you. But the third is that don't make assumptions. And so many times when people interact with us, we assume far too many things that just do not apply. We assume they're angry with us. We assume they don't like us. We assume they want our husbands or our spouses or our partners when all they were are friends. And then the final one is that do your best. And so many people don't do your best. Your best may not be my best, and it may not be as much as I can do, but it's your best. My principal, my last boss used to tell the children, do your personal best.
Yes.
No one can fault you for that. That is, we say that's your limitation, but that's your sky. And if you reach your sky, that's it. That's your glory. And take glory in that. And as I speak about my principal, my boss, and children, a little word to parents. Um, Sometimes you're going to come up against a teacher that you don't like, and it's okay. Um, Everybody has their way of attacking whatever they do. Different teachers teach differently. And remember, your first child is not the same as your second child. And that teacher may have 20 different personalities in their classroom. And that teacher has the responsibility of meeting each child where they are, but with the same love and with the same input of knowledge to bring them all to the same level.
Yes.
That's a lot. That's a lot. They have an end result that they're trying to get to, and you can either help distract them from that, or you can help aid them. You can aid them in getting there. So many times when you're disagreeing with their methodology, can hinder what they're trying to give to your child. You may not like it, you may not agree, but sometimes it pays to sit back and listen. And if you don't agree, here's a trick for you. Get in there and work with them. Get into the classroom. Most teachers don't mind if you come into their classroom and see how they work. Sometimes, if you see how they work, you see how they love your child. If you can see how that teacher loves your child, you're good to go. Because
Mm-hmm.
that teacher, you know that they're only considering whatever they do for your child's best interests. That's
Yes.
enough of my teacher soapbox. But um, that's me. I kind of pulled that moniker because my classroom became known as the butterfly classroom. We raised monarch butterflies, and hopefully the next time I come on, I will have a little video of showing
Mhm.
you what happens as the caterpillar transforms into a chrysalis, and what happens when that chrysalis ecloses and becomes a butterfly. It's painful. So, in our lives, we're going to go through some painful things. But watching that taught me two things. One, the process is painful, but it's worth it in the end.
Mhm.
Two, you can get through it if there's someone overseeing you.
Hmm.
When you rear butterflies and caterpillars, whatever you're rearing them in, you have to go in. You have to make sure that they have the food, they have the right living environment, and you have to clean out their living environment as well. That's a messy job.
Yes, and
But in
thank
the
you.
end, in the end, when you're able to see them come out, and you can almost tell they change colors, the chrysalis becomes black, and then at one point you can actually see the monarch orange and black through the walls of the chrysalis. And as I
Wow.
was listening to the song in the beginning, there's a line in there that says that you will see the outcome through the cocoon. And I'm like, yep, you can. You're looking at it, you see the questions in there, but your answers will come out. And when your answers come out, it's a revelation of what you've been through, and look how beautiful you are, you know? So that is my enthusiasm about it. And that's the story that I learned from it. It's everybody, even the caregiver, has to have someone to give them care.
Hmm.
Everyone. Some of it, I'm getting something out of this too. Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing, Madam Butterfly, because like now we always talked about distractions. When I met you a few years ago, I didn't understand the complexity of that. And I just think about being a mentor, and as Mark can attest to that, these children are very impressionable. And as we talk, and I get a little chuckle about a sharecropper, because my mother's family is from Mississippi, my father's family is from Fayetteville, North Carolina. So when you think about it, that's really what this is when you think about values. Then I'll see, I saw a post that, people are not being who they are. So, but sometimes I know for myself, I can't speak for you guys. I lived in the inner city, but I went to Catholic school. So, in the day to day, as an honor student, even if you saw me on the ad, I was an honor student. I was a cheerleading captain. I was a staff NCO for ROTC. I went to Paris Island, Little Creek. So when I see those things, and I said, it don't apply to me. But what about the folks who don't have anyone cheering for them? You understand? So as a
Hmm.
mental health professional, and I look back and I digress and say, you have to have someone who's going to go against the naysayers. I know in the butterfly room, I posted something that Taraji P. Henson had posted. She said, when she was 40, someone said to her, "You're too old. If you don't make it by 25 in Hollywood, you're done." She said, if I would have listened, I'm 46 at that time when she did the video. So I thought it was good to share because, again, as I stated before in our previous episode, imagine a person who doesn't have anyone to cheer them on. All as they know that they're great inside. And now you have social media. And I think that sometimes people see messages, they take that, and then they jump on the bandwagon. Because I remember in school, I'm going to tell this story. I know I shared this with you about choices. And my thought of the day was about reality versus circumstances this week. I like to tie it in. So, what I am saying here is that as a paid professional, there are people who don't have insurance. So, who do these people go to? So all I know is that I know about self-help. I would tell the folks, you know what, if you don't have insurance, do 90 meetings in 90 days. And on the last one, we talked about the 12 steps. And again, come back here because we're going to continue that conversation about the 12 steps because everybody may not be okay with going to speak. But it's more so what tools are you going to need? So Madam Butterfly explained as an educator, sometimes we need that village. I know as a cycle breaker and anyone else here that didn't have that, you have to think you have young parents. And I know my parents were young. So back then, the grandmothers raised the grandchildren because they were going to finish the studies. We don't have that infrastructure anymore. I know Mark spoke of his his mother, and they still have that community. Everybody don't have that community to call. They don't. So what happens is you're out here by yourself. And later on today, we always got to come up with a tool. So the tool today we're going to talk about is the vagus nerve. And that vagus nerve basically is the largest nerve in your body that affects irritable bowel syndrome, which is IBS, anxiety, and your overall mind-body connection. So when you think about that, imagine someone who's going through a gastric bypass or something like that, or even taking Ozempic. What's going to happen is your vagus nerve is what's going to regulate everything. And when you're mentally not sound, you have to think your whole body, homeostasis, when you calm down, that nerve will let you know if you're going to eat, not eat, if you're going to feel full or anything like that. So all these things that we go through on a day-to-day basis is part of the morphing process. So Madam Butterfly, you gave us 4 stages. And I can't wait till you have that video, right? Because I know Mark, I know down in North Carolina, have you ever watched some butterflies?
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of butterflies, a big fan of birds because I mentioned that before. As a matter of fact, I just saw a
I think
bird
he's
earlier
muted.
today. I was actually joking because I was waiting for some people to come and make a delivery for the cultural arts center that I work at and everything like that. But Madam Butterfly and Toya, I've got to tease you because I think the bird might have had a little bit too much to eat because it was definitely a plump little bird and everything like that. So even though it was a sparrow, you could tell that it had, maybe had a little bit too much grain in its diet because even birds sometimes can get a little bit on the weight side as well. So I was just thinking as I was watching that bird, and the bird was probably looking at me like, "You can't talk. You got a little weight on you as well," and everything like that. So that's just one of those things that we can observe and make light and have fun with the humanity of life, but also our Mother Nature things as well.
matter of fact, the people that are here donating some art, they had spent some time about 50 years ago in Africa, and he was actually teaching some of the people English and other things. But he's donated some drums and some artifacts for things that he was at when he was in places like South Africa and Nigeria and all along those lines. So, a lot of times you don't even know the impact you're going to have on people, even when you're with them. Because I know that I've got some artifacts, and you probably got some artifacts in your house that as you get older, you may decide that you want to donate them to other people or pass them on to your family or all along those lines. So a lot of times we don't think about the legacies that we're living and leaving as well. I mean, not that anybody's in a rush to go, but we all know that that happens at some point or another in our life, and we need to know what kind of legacy we're leaving, whether that's a physical legacy, like artifacts and letters that you may have written, or whether that's something that you're passing on in the sense like we're doing on this show of knowledge.
Yes, and I don't know because I hear a background. I'm not sure. Is that you, Mark? Because you
It
sound a
might be
little
me.
far away today. Can you
Let
hear
me
that
check
noise,
my.
Madam Butterfly?
It probably may be me. I
No,
was
I
just on
don't. I
here.
didn't hear Mark at all,
Now,
but
now it went away. Just make sure it's
okay.
clear. But
Okay.
thank you. It's just those small things. I guess that's why
Hmm.
I'm a visual person. But Madam Butterfly, I don't know how much time do you have with us today because I know you're on location before we get into this other stuff.
I'm here for the moment.
Okay, so we're gonna go with it, and I
Toya, did
think
you want to see that video? Because I know you mentioned the Vega
yeah, we're
Nerf.
gonna do that. But I want to introduce because we have an MD that's gonna speak. But I don't know. I'm having a feedback. I'm hearing. I'm not sure who
So,
that is.
it might be coming from me. If you want, I can exit because there
No,
is a
can
fan.
you hit mute? You can listen. Can you hit mute on the thing? You can just
I
put mute on it on the bottom, on the left. You
That,
see where your pace is on. I don't know how it looked. Yeah, but thank you. So before we get into that, for those who are listening, do some research on butterflies. This place is a place of healing. As you know, there's a lot of information in the world. And I think that what we need sometimes is just to watch. I know there's people watch, but as long as we reach one person, it's good. So this is what we're going to talk about today. What is your vagus nerve? Mark is going to show us a video in a minute, but I just want you to understand what this is. As I said before, it's the largest nerve in your body and it affects you. Right now, I was talking to some young folks, and they said that right now there are 93 million videos on TikTok labeled with the hashtag Vegas nerve, featuring ways to tap into, research, and simply understand the influence of the largest nerve in your body. So I said, let me make sure that I'm staying up with these young folks because when we were young, we didn't have no internet. I had to go to the library, learn how to read the periodic index and everything like that. But everything is a touch of a paper. But basically, just a quick lesson. Do you know that the vagus nerve starts from the brain and goes down through your lungs, heart, and intestines? And it affects several muscles. And it has a physical effect on your swallowing, sweating, digestion, speech, and your heart rate, among other bodily functions. Notably, the vagus nerve is also integrated in your parasympathetic branch of your nervous system. So just think about it when you get a headache. You know, when you get a headache, you feel this beeping because right now that's the blood flow that's going to your head. So when you take a Tylenol or something like that, that is over the counter medication that you're taking to calm yourself down. But as you know, with your age, you have to watch what you're taking because it affects your liver. And one of the things that I like to share with you guys is how that we can have everlasting life, with here on earth and then everything else. But you have to think about where do you fit into that? Do you want to be a person as you age that you're going to be able to live without taking all these medications? Because as folks don't know, when you take a medication, it is just suppressing your symptoms. So let's just get into this. Now, according to Gabrielle Giuliano Villani, a LCSW, an eye movement desensitization and processing therapist, she incorporates vagus work in what she does. And all I know is that when I was meeting with folks in a mental health setting one-on-one, they would come in and say, my stomach is bothering me and everything. I have a court date coming up. I'm worried about my children being taken from me. And there's times that I would have a court appearance for DIFUS, and the folks were upset. And I said, calm down, have some tea and everything. Because just imagine you have to go in front of a judge and the judge is telling you that you might not see your kids again. What's supposed to happen? So as a professional, I want to calm the person down because, sometimes people can look at you and think your reality is your circumstances. And if the person had a history of substance abuse, they may think that person may be under the influence. But before I go into that, now we have Mark back. Is that video queued up? Because sometimes, I like a visual. Can we get that visual?
It is. So let's check this video out and see what they're talking about. So let's play this minute video right now. So here we go.
This is 1 Minute Mental Health, and I'm Dr. Roseanne. And today we're talking about the vagus nerve and ways to stimulate it to support our mental well-being. The vagus nerve is one of our longest nerves in our body, and it connects our brain to our gut. There is a bidirectional influence between the two, and it supports many vital systems within our body, including heart rate, digestion, our respiratory rate, and it's a vital part of our parasympathetic nervous system and helps us to mitigate stress. It helps us to calm down when we are stressed. Now, there are ways to stimulate our vagus nerve to help us be calm. And they can run the gamut from breathing activities to yoga to different somatic activities. And these are all things that we can do at our desk, in a classroom, in the comfort of our home. And one of my favorite ways to help calm your nervous system is a simple 4-7-8 breath. You're breathing in for 4 seconds, you're holding for 7 seconds, and then you're breathing out, doing a long exhalation to help bring us down into a parasympathetic state.
Mark,
Yeah.
do
Well, I
you
know
do any of
about
those
the nerve.
exercises without knowing that you're calming yourself down before I get into some more information? What you think about that?
That was very um, profound. That's the word I was looking for, and everything like that. Because I think about the bones that we have in our body and how much knowledge we don't have of our own body dynamics and all along those lines. But definitely, it was something just to think about, something that goes from the brain down to your guts that impacts so many of us and all along those lines. So it
Mhm.
was definitely informational, and I know that a lot of people will even find ways, like the young lady was saying, through yoga and meditation, in order to balance themselves and in order to calm down with whatever they're going through, because a lot of times people are facing a lot of ailments and they can do things by taking control of their body to better those situations. And sometimes people are facing a crisis, whether that's Crohn's disease or whether that's IBS or whether that's a number of other things, and they can do some activities to help, if not cure the problem, at least alleviate some of the problems that exist with it, based on some of the treatments that you can do when you understand your body.
Yes, and definitely because I currently to taking this Johnson & Johnson vaccine, that's what put me in this area. So this is basically for something beknownst to me because I work in the system. They said I had to take this vaccine. So I am included with a couple other, well, there's folks around the world who have issues. So, but the problem here is that you have something that affects all that, and then you can take a vaccine or something like that. And for people who I know that I'm in a group of people, because my medically assisted nutritionist, my motility specialist that I see so that I can live is telling me these things. So I said, you know what? If I am experiencing that, how many other people are? So think about it. They're saying that this is can also be effective if you're a trauma survivor. That also affects, so you're going to have other issues that go on with you. Then the other thing that not only is the Vegas having a social media moment, that is also saying that it sends sensory information from the body to the brain. And then I also can affect you in other things like your mental health. These are things that are unseen. So again, I want to go through that because when it comes to your stress level, your anxiety level, and your trauma, what they're saying is we call that bubble guts. You ever had that, or flatulence, which is actually gas? These are signs that you're going through a response with your vagus nerve you may not even know. Sometimes, as his stated here in this article, registered nurse and paramedic Krista Elkins, she tells Daily OM that she knows that people suffer from cardiac events, and that can also affect them because their vagus nerve has been stimulated. Another diagnosis that a person may have is inflammation or inflammatory diseases. And what happens is inflammation is your body's natural way to respond to an injury or disease. And guess what? These things can cause severity in your GI symptoms. Another one, IBS, as we mentioned before, that's something where the physical movement of the food through your stomach muscles. And this is when a person who has IBS may feel that they're full all the time and not understanding why. So for those, we recommend when you get to a certain age that you get a colonoscopy and an endoscopy, because what's going on in your body, you can't see it. One thing that I would recommend as people who have reported they have multiple health symptoms, you have to look at your excretion, which is your bowel movement, your number 2, because from there you can tell from the color of your stool what's going on with your body. Because right now you have your gut brain. Your gut, your vagus nerve goes into your stomach, and research show that people who suffer from digestive issues are having an issue with that, or there could be a stress marker. Then the main thing that I found out, long COVID. Some folks are undiagnosed. As for me, on the other end, that COVID vaccine was shot into my body. So I'm not unsure, because right now the government is protected. But you have to think about, according to this, the preliminary research shows that those with vagus nerve dysfunction or disorders could be more at risk for long COVID, which affects 10 to 15% of people who are contacted with that virus. So now we have to see what people are going through. So when I saw that TikTok was eating that up, as our previous guest JV said, TikTok is a global platform. He said that when it comes to Facebook and to Instagram, it's mostly local folks. And now I said, we have someone who's younger that understands what we are dealing with now in the world. And again, we need to work on some things to make sure that we are educated for ourselves as we get over the age of 40. Make sure you get your preventative check up so that you can know what's going on with your body. Now, the last thing that I want to talk to is basically what this vagus nerve, as we saw, and pretty much what can I do to help myself. There's something called a vagus nerve massage. And that massage, basically, you massage behind the back of your ears. If you ever seen people and they're doing this, I remember in high school, there was a friend of mine who was a heavier weight, and I remember she had the staple in her ear. And I remember that. I said, why do folks have staples in their ear? Just think about it. Multicultural environment. I never really saw anybody, a person of color, having a staple in their ear. But basically, psychiatrist Sam Zan, founder of Anywhere Clinic, he suggests that massage whenever you're feeling that you're having a carotid artery pulse. So from there, that can help you calm down. Another one is tapping. Tapping. So here from your chest. And it's noted as your happy point. I know I actually kind of do this. So I'm looking at it, said, take your index finger and do this for like 20 seconds. Then the other thing, the deep breathing, which the video shows us, because by you doing shallow breaths, you're calming yourself down. And then I know for folks that I've seen and worked with who have autism, think about children with autism and some of their behaviors on the spectrum disorder, some of the behaviors that we witness. Madam Butterfly, when you're in, just pop in, but just so you can tap in on that. But I just know, just her being a educator, you see kids humming and singing or gargling. That's another one. And again, I have seen that with children, because what happens is what they're doing is they're working on those uncomfortable symptoms. Because I know for a fact from myself is that when you have colic, basically they say gastroparesis is another disorder. They said it's like adult colic. Thank you, Madam Butterfly, for popping in. Because I just said, as far as for some children who may have a developmental disability, I know we spoke about this before with their vagus nerve. All of this is interconnected, because sometimes kids rock or do different things. Even with this shrugging of your shoulders, there's different things that mirrors it in parallel. So what can you say? Because as an educator, you're watching the children in the classroom setting. You're on mute.
By the time we see them in school, unless they've been early diagnosed, they've already found that way to calm themselves down. We can redirect. And most times parents don't know how to give them things to give them to redirect. Children who are on the spectrum, there are a number of things they're either extremely hypersensitive to stimulation, or they need the stimulation. I've had children in my class on the autistic spectrum where they couldn't focus unless they were moving. And what we did was we had this little seat that had, we called it the nubby seat. and we allowed him to sit on the snubby seat. Now, unbeknownst to most of the kids, he could move his little bottom around and get that simulation, but it wasn't a distraction within the classroom or to anyone else around him. The other methodology I use, again, for children who had to be moving because they've already established that for
Mm-hmm.
their mediation, I had a rocking chair. And they were allowed to sit in the rocking chair, but there were rocking chair rules when we were in circle time. Children could sit next to them in the rocking chair, but they could not touch the rocking chair. That was for safety. But
Mm-hmm.
he could rock to his delight. But there was a focus that was in it. When 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 they're doing these things to soothe themselves, it's like the nerve has is taking it's a distraction, and they're trying to get rid of the distraction so they can do what is purposeful, and it's difficult unless they're given the correct tools to do it with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I the other thing we used to do is brushing. Those are the children who needed that stimulation. You're working with them one on one, little fine baby brush, and you just brush the hand while you're reading or talking, and it's amazing to see it. They're laser glued on then what you want to do because they're getting that need that they're calming down that nerve, and then they can do whatever else they want to. They can do what their brain's telling them to do. Um, so many times young parents don't realize what this is. You know, so many times it comes from, I'm not giving my baby a pacifier. Give the baby a pacifier when he's young. Let them go through that stage.
And that can be
Yeah.
cultural. That can be cultural. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that we have Mark here, and I want him because you're in the community center, Mark.
Yeah, I'm
So
in
I
the
know that
community
from here,
center.
you're not in that school environment. So what have you seen?
No, I've even seen it in my own family because I have a
Mm-hmm.
cousin that is, I think it would be technically a second or third cousin, but he's on that spectrum. But a lot of times he is the best worker bee for my mom and all along those lines. So my mom would be actually one of his cousins as well. But a lot of times he's calling because he wants to do something, he wants to be active, and sometimes he likes to do that. And sometimes people on the spectrum are in that environment. So I know that Josh, if I remember correctly, that's his name, likes to make himself useful. Like he'll come and help her with cleaning or help her with what some people consider chores that we oftentimes don't like to do, but he finds it a way to actually calm his nerves. So sometimes that can happen, and I think you have probably observed that even among your students, Madam Butterfly, where there are some students that like those things that we as adults sometimes think of as being tedious, but in their mindset, they find it as a way to actually use it as a calming factor and everything like that. Because sometimes different people have different reactions, even those on the spectrum, and some of them because it's kind of a routine that they go through and everything. So they like some of those routine activities and all in that space. That's what I've observed. So they might actually enjoy folding the clothes. And I'm just using folding clothes as an example. Or they might enjoy doing some of those kind of chore-like activities, and that's not always what people expect. You know, sometimes us adults we don't even like doing them ourselves, but sometimes people on the spectrum, that's a calming mechanism for them, and all along those lines. And one of the things I was just talking to the older couple about that was donating some of this art to us. It was art from Kenya and Nigeria. Is he was remembering how when he went off to school, it was like going off into a whole other world because he had been raised in a town near the coast and everything. And when he was being raised as a youngster, and he's in the 70s now, he was doing a lot of farm work. So he was talking about how he remembered his mother canning. I think he said something like maybe 300 cans or quarts of whatever they were canning at that particular time and everything
Mm-hmm.
like that. And I even remember people that would do the beans and definitely would do the bean kind of like stuff that you can do in that area. And you got a lot of farmers that do that kind of stuff that a lot of people would consider to be mundane, but they are doing it for survival and for work. Because he was talking about how they did a lot of farming. They would even take stuff to the big farm sales and all along those lines. It was in an adjacent town. I think it was Kinston and maybe Roanoke Rapids or one of the other towns like that. Where
Mm-hmm.
they would take them to
Yeah,
adjacent
the
towns.
woods out there. But I think that we all here know what the South is, and it's funny that you say that. I remember, as I say, shelling those field peas and things like that. It was one of those things. The culture is missing. And I know we keep saying it's a common thing with us about these big mamas. So you have to think, where are you coming from? And I wanted to highlight that because, again, we always talk about the reality and the circumstances. People like to judge. And today, I just know that when we're giving information to help, because again, this is a place of healing, information, and morphing. And I think that these small things are not discussed. And as for me being a babysitter for years and then working in the child care, and then I only have one kid. I wanted more children, but I said, um, I have to have a mate for this. And no slight to anyone, that just wasn't my story. But now I just know as a cycle breaker what I had to persevere through. And I like the fact that when I hear that, I remember my big mama going every summer, because in Catholic school we got out in May. So I would leave in May, be gone, and come back in August because my birthday is the 8th of August. And I said to myself, I said, certain things don't apply to me. I'm just grateful now that I was cultured and I was able to have that to a certain extent. And then from there, those were the values that I had. My son was able to go until my uncle died. Horses, we love horses. I can ride a dirt bike. I haven't been on three-wheelers, four-wheelers, shoot all this stuff, shooting guns. But these are things that folks don't know about me. And I just said, for anyone listening, you really got to know who you are, how to take care of yourself. Your reality is not your circumstances. And today's episode was about that, learning about your health. Learning what your children are doing at school. And I know that with my late brother's daughter, I go to the teachers' conference. It's different now. It's a big room. What happened to the one-on-one? I went into this room. There was 4 tables. People's parents can hear. Luckily, my niece is an honor roll student. Imagine if that child did not have a positive report. Where's the privacy? Madam Butterfly, did you have private teachers conferences all the time, or was it in a group setting?
Oh, no. We did we made it fun, sort of. We went through from pre-K to 8th grade, and every teacher had to have conferences. I usually was the last one to close the building because I had so many parents. However, they were always one-on-one. Whenever I had other people there, my parents who didn't speak English fluently would either bring someone else with them or older child who could translate. If I got backed up, then I'd have parents in another part of the room waiting. Some of them would bring their children at night because they were working, didn't have babysitters. But then that was like a true waiting room with toys or books or entertainment there, but not a group setting. What we did do to accommodate those parents who had children in several levels, if you had a child that was in kindergarten, first or second grade, they were on one kind of rotation. And then third and fourth grade parents, they were on a different rotation. So you weren't trying to see all your child's teachers at the same time, unless you had children who were in first, second, first and second. And, the teacher would work with the appointments. But it gave them a chance to, meet with the classroom teacher, and then we set up, when they were doing those rotations, we would have a group setting with the music teacher, the art teacher, and the phys ed teacher, because those are the ones that usually don't get to meet with the parents, and those are the ones that see your child in a community environment.
Yes.
Many schools, there were times where there were classes that met, the gym teacher could often have 2 classes at a time. So there was a lot of community interaction there and group activity there. The other unique thing we did at our schools, they weren't required, but the paraprofessionals that worked in the classroom were invited back. And my paraprofessional, I always had it because that was a different set of eyes. And when I would set up the interview, I would, there were some children. I said, "Well, what's your take on this?" And they all had valuable input because there were different facets, especially in the early childhood classroom. They used to be set up in almost centers because we were trying to develop different parts of the child in different ways and in different situations. Everything wasn't always rote reading and writing like we got it,
Mm-hmm.
although there were some things that should be. Yeah.
And that's interesting because, like I said, at the mental health center, because it was a hospital, there were people who were inpatient. Then, just we were outpatient therapy, substance abuse. It was acute treatment, and I would see the kids in the hallway in therapeutic holds and all of that. And these, like I said, this was earlier in my career. So then I was wondering, okay, inclusion. Then we had somewhere else where the kids would stay there. So then I asked the question, I'm new, and they said, oh no, they stay over there. Some of them get bussed in. So I'm looking outside. But again, for safety, then you have to think later in my career, I'm dealing with the adolescents and now the adults. So I saw that. And then some of them you ask when you're doing a biopsychosocial assessment, tell you about the kids. So think about it. If a person is taking care of themselves, who's taking care of the children? So that's the question here.
Mm-hmm.
So when I tell people reality versus circumstance, you don't know what someone is going through. But I know one of the things that Madam Butterfly, he always says is avoid your distractions. But the main thing, silence is your power. Silence is your power. So for the listeners today, and we hope that you come back. We're here every other Friday at 8 p.m. Because right now, what we're trying to do in this, we have On the Couch with Dr. Diamond, which will be next Saturday at 11. And what we're doing as people in the Black and brown community, what we are doing is putting out the framework. Because right now, again, I've been in the field a very long time, but everybody don't have money. We don't know what the status of this. Co-pays cost. I remember I was talking with a client and the person was upset. They said, well, why are they charging me a $15 copay? I said, well, it says telehealth. Well, it's the same. No. So guess what? When the insurance company was called, you know what their response, the insurance company said? Well, because it wasn't one of our referred providers. Well, it says telehealth. Telehealth could be a $5 copay. I said, that's a loophole. So for anyone, if you're questioning that, just a tip, you have to go through their network.
Right.
So think about it. If you're spending $15 a week, that's $120 versus $20. Which one you want? $20, 5, 10, 15, 20, or you want the other one? So you might have to call the provider. And that's what happens when you have someone that comes here. And again, I had to deal with people who are mandated, but for anyone that needs that help, it's not about that. It's about longevity. And if you have any issues with your vagus nerve, any of those inflammatory IBS, any GI issues, anybody that's at risk for colon cancer, think about it. Why are you at risk for colon cancer? Because your bile is not going through your body. One of the things is a person who is diagnosed with gastroparesis, if your stool is orange, that means you're producing too much bile. Your liver, that's why you have to get your blood work every 6 months. So I'm just saying that because I am fighting to live as well. So as a cycle breaker again, the Butterfly Room is the place that you're going to come and learn. We're going to talk about things, and as things unfold, our goal is upcoming year to have something in person, so be on the lookout for that. Now, I know we're going to be wrapping up. So the next 2 weeks, we're going to have an author. So we hope to see you in 2 weeks. We have an author that's going to be coming and sitting with us. And as this unfolds, the team Butterfly is going to be here to provide you with information so that you can be the best that you can be. But we want you to wake up, people, and understanding that closed mouths don't get fed, as the old people say. And one of the things that I laughed about, right, Madam Butterfly? I said, because I'm
closed mouth and closed hands.
And that's basically what my sharecroppers in Mississippi would say. Don't throw rocks, and people throw rocks and hide their hands. So unfortunately, I didn't know what that meant because I was in a multicultural environment. Now when I got to over 40, I understood what that was. But that's where the fun was in the South. They would give you these little anecdotes, wooden nickels, don't cut your nose to spite your face. So what I took those as is visual word problems. But I couldn't get the answers because I wasn't in the right environment. Once I got into the right environment and came outside, I saw what it was. So imagine how many other people that don't know what those things are. But sometimes common sense ain't what it is because the person may not have been exposed to it. As they say, ignorance is bliss. What's ignorance?
Common
Ignorance means
sense
I have no
isn't
knowledge,
always
right?
common.
Hmm?
I said common sense isn't always common.
Right.
That's another one they would tell you.
Yes, and that could be mainly because if I'm in the black and brown community and I'm reading something on a standardized test, and it's funny that do all of you guys take the SAT on this thing here, right? So which one was your higher? I'm going to do a third. We're going to do three as far as our percentage here, right? Which one was better for you, your math or your verbal on your SAT?
Ironically, it was math. I'm
Mine
a
were
verbal
almost equal.
person, but it was
Huh?
math that was the highest.
Mine is math. And what about you, Madam Butterfly?
Mine were almost equal.
See, that's good for her because that tells you her culture. Me, the math part was off the. I had to go through a class for that. You know why? Because the passages weren't about me. I didn't know anything about that. But when I took my GRE, that was good. But do you understand? Earlier on, how can I take a standardized test of information I don't know? Think about it. Knowledge is power. Every day is a school day. As they, what's the cliche? You know better to do better. Then now they say to live better. So it's all these things here. And I just hope today we captivated your mind. But we really wanted you to meet who Madam Butterfly is to the Butterfly Room as part of the team. She's an educator. And what we're going to do now is not about us. It's about the babies. And because she has been there from the beginning and she can give some viewpoints. And the next thing you know, as far as the comments are concerned, if you see anything, you're coming for a playback, and if you have any topics that you want us to discuss, please put it in the comments because we will cover that. You know, right now, this is a movement. And as we know, it takes 4 stages to morph as a butterfly. And just know that if you made mistakes in your life or been through anything, that's not your reality. Sometimes it's your circumstances, you know, if you're not raised in a traditional background. And some people, they say they were raised in a traditional background. However, they may not have the support because in the South, they were workers. They were workers. So I always talk to my mom, T, and my aunts. I had 2 of them in my mother's absence. And I said, you know, I had a lot of love. And sometimes you're growing and you're looking for your life to be better. But this is what the higher power gave me, my creator. So I'm going to give everyone, you know, that understanding of that. Sometimes we are hard on ourselves, but you have to have a champion in your life. And sometimes it does take a village. It does. And think about it. The education system is the village, but it has changed. So today we just gave you a little bit of a view into that now things may have changed. And, you know, with the school systems again, and I've asked that because I witnessed that the teachers' conferences are different now. And think about that parent who may be illiterate. They may need, like you said, they don't know English or anything like that. They're going to pull somebody in. Then that means that it's not going to be an effective conference because of they don't know the information. So just some food for thought. Madam Butterfly, what do you have to say that, you know, in your closing of that with the education system?
Listen more than you speak. Okay? That's the biggest thing. Listen more than you speak. The saying is another old saying, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth and 2 eyes. I have a friend who says, I can show you better than I can tell you. And you can see more than you can say. Yeah?
Yes, thank you. Mark, I know you doing triple duty. What you doing over there?
Well, I got triple duty. Like I said, I had somebody who was donating some African artifacts that we have now stored or in the process of storing and everything like that because they
Well,
had
take
spent some
some
time
pictures
in
for next time so you can
Kenya
see
and
what we want to see.
Nigeria and everything like that. So they were doing that at the Cultural Arts Center that I work at. I was actually here earlier because I wouldn't usually be here on this particular Friday, but one of our local TV stations, I think it's an NBC affiliate, wanted me to come here and talk to them about music and the importance of music in our community and all along those lines because we've had some tremendous musicians here in the area that have performed, including some legends like Taj Mahal, including some that were from here like Brother Yusef. So I was sharing with them some of the upcoming season because we've got Brandy Younger. So we've actually got a harpist that'll be here on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, and everything like that. So she's actually in New York and is also a teacher. And so she's a professor
Beautiful.
and a harpist, and she'll be down here performing. She's been winning some awards and getting some recognition in that modern style of jazz. And then later on, we'll have Branford Marcellus. I think that's in February. And then on early February, we'll have Keith Knight, who did that series Woke and everything like that. And then Taisha Coates will be here as part of the season, and also Melissa Harris Perry, the media person, and all along those lines. So we've got some great things happening at the center. So I've been dealing with that and dealing with those kind of activities today. So we've got tremendous things going on. But this is an education venue as well, because we've actually got some dance students that will be here tomorrow on Saturday, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. And they've been learning African dance as well as African drumming and all in that space. So I'll be seeing them
Nice.
tomorrow and everything. And we've got our poetry slam team that'll be here tomorrow evening picking their annual team, because they pick a team every year as it goes off into regional and national competitions and local competitions as well. So we'll pick the team next tomorrow. So that should be fun, and definitely looking forward to that. But also looking forward to Brandy Younger and the concert. But I was even thinking about what you were talking about, which is education and the specialty of education, because I was even thinking about like the in school suspension and all along
Mhm.
those lines. 'Cause I remember when I first was in school, they were just introducing that, and that was in the late '70s and everything like that. And I don't even know they still do that now, but
No,
maybe.
they still do that. That's one of the forms you go to. Detention. Certain amount of detentions will equal in school, out of school position of this suspension. I can't even get. I'm tongue tied right now. But usually in the school handbook, and it's funny because I told my son, I said, look at the back of this. When he was coming, I said, look at the back of the book, see what the infractions are. Make sure you don't get them. He said, what do you mean, Mom? I said, knowledge is power. I said, talking on your phone, doing all this. I said, when you do a job, you get a human resources man. You need to read it.
Mhm.
You need to read it. I
Yeah.
had a family member had an accident, and I tried to explain that, and it was interesting because they're young, they don't know. I said, whenever you go, you need to know what are the rules and the regulations. And then you use that. The next thing you know, you have something in your file. But things have changed. That's a thing at work. Folks don't want to do the paperwork. Then they want to get rid of someone. I said, you have to have progressive discipline. As the QA director, I said, you got to have progressive discipline. And that goes on with our life. And I know sometimes as people pleasers, which we talked about that before. Remember, that was another subject. But again, the butterfly room is going to be forever changing. And today, I just want to thank everyone for coming out and just understanding your reality is not your circumstances. So, in our parting words, as we always are waiting for Mark to come in so he can cue us. But, sometimes what your eyes see, so maybe somebody else doesn't want to see. And I like how you said that, Brenda. We have to listen more and say less. And sometimes what I've noticed, even with myself, it's the mission of why we do what we do, why our purpose is saying to do that. But just again, you're going to be distracted by naysayers. People are going to look at you. And sometimes, just remember, with social media, I sometimes do that, but I post with intent. When you're looking at something, just understand, just because somebody posted, it's not necessarily about you, but it's a distraction. So if you're on a positive note, there is light, dark, positive, negative, the alpha and the omega, everything. There's always going to be a spectrum. I love math. The point, negative to positive. Just understanding today as you leave here, you are going to be distracted in life. And usually, when you're close to morphing, as a butterfly does, it's going to hurt. What did you say? So let's visually think about that. Your wings are coming out and you are morphing. It's going to hurt a little bit. But at the end of the day, you're going to have strong wings. You're going to be able to fly high. And guess what? We came in this world by ourselves. We're going to leave. But however, we love very hard. I know I do. And as a mental health professional, I said, you know what? As me being an administrator right now, I'm not doing direct care. However, this is what was missing for me. And as I go on, I felt there was a void. And I said, you know what? I can do this and see what it is. It was on my spirit. Now we're here. This is episode 5.
Mhm.
And I thank everyone today. And we're going to see you soon. But I know, Mark, do you have any commercials for us today before we do our parting words? You have any commercials for us today, or we just closing out? I don't know.
We can close out. I was going to play a little bit more of that jazz piece and everything along those lines, but we do have
Sure.
some other things as well, including one about mental health and all along those lines. But we're getting ready to get on out of here. But it's been a fun show, learned a lot and everything like that. But we've got a couple of commercials, including the one of the author that we had before, and all along those lines, and one that deals with mental health as well. So definitely got a couple of those that we'll play, and then we'll close out with the music also. So maybe about two or three commercial type things to get us on out of here and all along those lines. But definitely, it's been a very informative show, and we do need to pay attention to our physical health, but also our mental health and our emotional health as well. And I know that that's what you and Madam Butterfly are all about. So if it's okay, we'll just get ready to get
Sharing
out
is
of here.
spirit. But one other thing, Mark, I was just thinking, it was just on my spirit right now. You said that at the cultural center, I don't know if this is okay, but I just know that with kids going to the concerts, if you want at any time a piece to, to highlight the youth, I would, if you get the permission, I would like to see that, because I know that sometimes my niece says, how many likes did you get? We posted a picture. I don't like that. But if it's something that's going to showcase and it's going to improve self-esteem, I would like that, and even Madam Butterfly, there's just different things that we have. And sometimes you might need to see it so that you can know that you can do it. Doesn't matter what color you are. Because I love bird watching. I love fishing. I love crafting. Yeah, I
Well, in
do.
that case, I have an idea because there was a show that we do here on the network. This young lady is in her 20s now and everything like that. So I might play some of the other commercials, but this young lady became a success when she was in high school and everything like that. So
Yeah.
I think that on the way out, we'll hear a little bit of Terry Lynn Harris. That's her name. She's a singer. And like I said, I first learned of her singing when she was in school, and I think it was high school, maybe it was even junior high, and all along those lines. So I'll play that, and then I'll play a couple of those videos, including the young lady that had a book about breaking those barriers and all along those lines. But I think that a good way to get out of here is this song that I've had in my queue for a while from Terry Lynn Harris, who is a performer out of, well, she's a college kid now, but she was out of the Raleigh area, if I remember correctly, and all along those lines. And yeah, if other young people have got things that they want to share, we're always welcome to do that here on the Butterfly Room.
Yeah,
Let's check this
definitely.
out.
Madam Butterfly, do you have anything else to say before we say ta-ta for now?
Yes, I'm going to give a little assignment.
Okay.
There's a song from Dreamgirls. Beyonce sang it, so everybody should rush to it, probably. The song's called Listen,
Yes.
and it occurs in the movie when she's trying to break free. And it's like her cry out, I've been trying to tell you all this stuff, but nobody's listening. And that's the song. So if you get a chance, listen.
And I think remind us, because we might have to open that up, because we're going to have an author. And as you know, she morphed. So right now, I'm not going to tell y'all, but you need to come back in 2 weeks, because we're going to have an author, and her character morphed. So I think that would be, that's going to be our homework. Listen, and you're going to bring some. I think we're going to do that next time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll
Listen.
see you soon.
All right.
Fridays at 8.
It's Friday today. So this is Terry Lynn Harris and her song, and we're ready to get out of here with some other commercials, and also we'll close out totally with the Butterfly Room song. But here's Terry Lynn, a young lady that is making some noise in the singing world.
Oh, that's dope. In case you haven't noticed, I'm walking in my purpose, holding on to God's unchanging hand in His plan. I trust in Him with all of my heart. Though the road gets hard, I made it this far. You are my strength in the time of the storm. My help comes from you. You are what I'm living for. I'm Terrell, here
My name is Renee Taylor, and I grew up in Summit, New Jersey, born and raised. I love to laugh with my friends. I love to go to the movies. But recently, I became a published author. The Breakthrough. One of my best friends says it's insightful, it's inspiring, it's relatable. I mean, that meant so much to me that she said this about me, knowing me. But for you, it's going to be an up-close view of my challenges, my struggles, everything that I've been through, and how I made it out on the other side. So I believe that we are all breaking through, and I want you to break through too. So pick it up, so it can change your life. And I've had choices that turned me into the woman that I am today. I managed to break past and break through all of those hard times. And this is true too. With the amazing group of authors I've asked to join me in the Breakthrough.
Life is like a roller coaster. You never know what's coming next. Have life's events caused you to give up on yourself? You may have realized that time passes quicker than you expected, and you can no longer avoid your truth. Do you feel like giving up? In The Bounce Back, Dr. Taz explains how her life went off track, the damage it caused her mental and physical health and goals, and how she is now taking care of her needs. Get advice from Dr. Taz on how to properly care for yourself. The Bounce Back from Dr. Teresa A. Smith. Available now.
You found a quiet corner of your mind, a shelf where all the broken things were piled. The stories told in whispers and in scars brought you here beneath these waiting stars. Not for a fix or just to soothe the ache, but for the chance that something new could break. So let the silence hold you like a seam where every thread of hope begins to gleam. This is the in-between. Welcome to the butterfly room, where healing's not an end, it is a tune. You learn to hum and gender afternoons. Transformation blooms from a cocoon of questions. You'll be led to see the colors waiting in the thread. Welcome to the butterfly room. We'll hold the lens up to the hidden part, the dormant art that's beating in your heart. We'll map the change, the subtle steady turn, the lessons that the aftermath can earn. Not to erase the lines that make your map, but to unfold the wings across the gap and watch the old shell fragile drift away, making space for the new light of day. In this alchemical space, welcome to the butterfly room, where healing's not an end, it is a tune. You learn to hum and gentler afternoons, transformation.